Hello everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of The Study, a show where we bring forth truth out of the 1611 King James Bible with Apocrypha, as well as other historical and archaeological books to help supplement that truth that we bring forth. Today's episode will be an enlightening and exciting episode filled with edifying facts and truths. Today we're going to be covering the topic of the 12 tribes of Israel. It's not my attempt in this episode to reestablish any other truth concerning the 12 tribes that has been brought forward, but rather to supplement as well as to build upon the works of other brothers who have brought forth the truth in helping the 12 tribes of Israel in present day recognize who they truly are. I'm going to be pulling from encyclopedias today, with copyrights as early as 1910. So you got to get very old books that will provide truth before a certain time period, because when our people began to be influential in the land and began to get higher job placements, they were therefore able to send their children to the private institutions which housed the books that were hidden from the public institutions. So when our children began to go to the private institutions, those institutions took it upon themselves to begin to remove certain books out of their libraries, which they had provided to their children, that would highlight who the Israelites were in the land and other truths pertaining to the children of the book, or the Israelites who are still on earth until this present day. I'll also be pulling from some archaeological books that were put together from world historians, learned individuals who had actually studied and who were part of certain excavations pertaining to the areas that the Israelites come from. So what I'm going to be doing in this study is just adding unto the structure that was already put forth as highlighting who the children of Israel are and were at one point in time in ancient history, as well as how their history has been moved up to present day 2015. So like I said, it's going to be an exciting episode filled with truth, filled with fact. So I'm not attempting to deliver information that has already been put out there. Okay, there are tons of information regarding this subject that you can go check out for yourself. That's what I hope you do as you watch this study in any episode that you watch. The object and point of the study is to be more of a confirmation to those who have gotten information outside of this study, so that they will be confirmed that they are heading the right path as they begin to take on truth for themselves. Okay, so I want you to remember, the truth shall always set you free, and as always, you better believe it.
Welcome to the study. Now go and grab your buddy. The word is for free. No need to go for broke. Just grab you a pen and some paper to take some notes. I'll never again deliver my soul to evil causes, cause now I know that I must live with a cleaner conscience. I've realized who I'll be representing now. Yahuwah the Elohim, that's the most high pal. No longer living wicked for Satan. We fighting through the frustration of Jacob's trouble in this great tribulation. We waking up, Israelites been elevating to greater heights. We fishing for men, hear what I'm saying? No longer playing. We staying on our knees praying for a lost generation, hoping that Yeshua save them, waiting on us return to slap the face of deprivation. Yahushua Hamashiach, the real name that his father gave us. To be as strong as other brothers and I, you must recognize the truth and start busting out lies. Cause real lies, real lies, real lies. Like we on a road trip, the 12 tribes start to recognize the signs of the horsemen. Of course, man, we need the youth to rise, but only once they start praying for new hearts and new minds. Let the Holy Ghost inside. No need to run and hide, cause when they start the genocide, you'll be on the right side. Turn off the wicked man's song, cause while they entertaining you, they preparing to drop bombs. My people stay strong and recognize the truth that's been in you all along.
Are you ready for this?
Welcome to the study.
Are you ready for
Now
this?
go and grab your buddy. The word is for free. No need to go for broke. Just grab you a pen and some paper to take some notes.
Welcome back to the study, folks. I'm your host, Scripture. As you heard, today's episode, we will be going over the subject of the 12 tribes of Israel. Who they are, where they are today, why we as the 12 tribes of Israel, as members of the 12 tribes of Israel, were made to be blinded to the fact of who we were and what that means in present day time as far as the uncovering of who the 12 tribes are. As always, we're going to start with some study words, and then we're going to go into some definitive terms, and then we'll begin to study and begin to answer some questions pertaining to this topic. So as always, I need you to go grab your concordance, get your pen, your paper, okay? Be ready to take some serious notes today, and remember that this particular topic today is brought forth is not one where I'm attempting to uncover truths that have not been already dissected and uncovered. Okay, what I'm doing in this study is to simply highlight those truths that have been brought forth and to be of a confirmation of sorts to those who are continuing to want to look for truth and continuing to need certain supplemental facts and truths to help them on their journey. Okay. So we got to remember in this time that as we bring forth this truth pertaining to the 12 tribes, why it's so important to understand who the 12 tribes actually are is not due to salvation's sake. It's not due to repentance sake. If you are not a part of the 12 tribes by blood, it is not going to affect your salvation in any way. What this is a study pertaining to the 12 tribes, because the 12 tribes, where they are in the land today, need to desperately understand who they are, because they are a part of a major prophecy. Okay, we read in the book of Revelations chapter 7 that there will be 144,000 men chosen or elect out of the 12 tribes of Israel, 12,000 from each tribe, who will be the leaders of Yahuwah, or the Most High, highest people during these last days into the kingdom to come. So it's very important that we identify who these 12,000 members of each tribe are from each of the 12 tribes, so that these men can begin to get serious in their lives and begin to take on the work and calling that they have been called to do. All right, so let's get on into these concordant study words and begin to study. Okay. All right, folks, the first study word for today's topic will be found in the Hebrew section of your concordance. We're going to once again cover the term Israel, okay? And we're going to be pulling from Hebrew 3478 as well as 3481. That is 3478 and 3481, where we read the word Yisrael, or Elohim strives, okay? Another name of Jacob and his descendants. Then we will see in 3478, he who rules as Elohim, okay, and that is what the name of Jacob means. He who rules as Elohim, or Israel, means he who rules as Elohim. And typically, when we talk about Israel, we are also referring to his posterity, or his lineage, according to blood. Okay, and this is going to be very important, viewers at home, for you to take note of this. I am not talking about the people that we presently see in Israel today. And I'm going to bring forth some truths and some facts and proofs about this. But first, we need to focus on who Israel is, and then in focusing on who they are, even today, according to bloodline, inheritance, blood, according to genetic code, the blood, we will be also talking about briefly who they are not. Okay? So, Israelites, or Israel, typically refers to the posterity of Israel. Then we see in 3481 of the Hebrew that Yisrael is also pertaining to that same posterity in the form or word of Israelite. Okay, so if you are an Israelite, then you are a true blood descendant of Jacob, who became Yisrael. Okay, you are a true descendant of Jacob's bloodline. Now, before Jacob was named Yisrael, all of his sons were Jacobites. Okay, So at one time we were considered Jacobites. It was only until Israelites' name was changed to Yisrael that we became Israelites. Okay? So it's very important to get your hand firm on these subjects so that you can be armed in the truth during these last days as you decide or are led to bring forth this truth to other people who the Most High leads you to. Okay? Now we're also going to cover the term Yisraelite. So let's go to the Hebrew section of 1121. Okay? 1121. And we're going to see anointed one, or sons afflicted. Okay? Sons afflicted. Okay? We also see valiant, or wealth, or worthy, or young one, or youth. Okay? Then we see how the Levite is a part of that Israelite. The Judites, Zebulonites. Okay? All of the different sons of Israel are within the Israelite posterity. Okay, so you have 13 sons. One of the sons, however, did not make it into the inheritance. He received an allotted piece of land as inheritance, but was made to lose that land due to his son's actions, and that individual is Dan. We're going to briefly just cover Dan, but it's not going to be this study is not going to be focused on Dan himself. Okay, we have to touch on him a little bit because he's not included in Revelation 7 as far as the 12,000 from each tribe becoming leaders for Yahuwah in these last days. Okay. Now we're going to go to the word tribe. All right, we're going to find tribe in the Hebrew section of your concordance under the term number 4294, as well as 7626. Okay, that's 4294 and 7626, where we see the word mate or mata, all right, which means tribe, rod, staff, tribe. Okay, of the feminine mata. Okay, and it comes from the root of nata, a branch, as extending. Okay, so when you are a tribe, you are a part of the posterity that extends from its origin. Okay, and in this situation you have 12 sons who have become tribal heads, and it is their headship or the overseeing of each tribe that has caused children to come from these tribes. Okay, according to bloodline. All right, not according to conversion or a want to be a part of the tribe. Okay, we are talking about literal blood, physical people who are a part of an original posterity that came through the line of Abraham, Isaac, into Jacob, who became Yisrael and had all of his sons. Okay. Now we also see that a tribe can be a tribe. Okay, and you guys can look through, or you viewers at home, excuse me, can look through these different terms as they're brought forth on your own, which I really hope that you do outside of the study so that you can continue, of course, to be founded in truth. That is the whole point of this study, to give you an idea of how to continue on for yourself when the internet is down, when you can no longer access your cable, you can no longer access certain internet channels to get truth. You need to know how to search for truth according to the word for yourself, so that you will continue to be armed when you are tested throughout these dark times. Okay, now we're going to go to the Greek section of the concordance, and we're going to go back to the word Israel, where we read from 2474 and 2475. Israel, the name of the Israelite people and their land. Okay, that's term 2475. Now we'll go to 2474, and the Israelite, one of the chosen people of Israel, the children of Israel. Okay, so once again, folks, the point of this study is to reconfirm with you viewers at home who may have doubted who you are, and also you viewers at home who may have been associated with the Jewish posterity, okay, or those who call themselves Jews in the land today, but who are only Jew by conversion and not by blood. Okay, so it's very important that you can recognize the truth, because the truth shall truly set you free if you accept the truth and begin to move forward in it. Okay, now we're going to go to our definitive word of the day, which is tribe. It's a noun. Okay, and the way we're going to use it today: a social division in a traditional society consisting of families or communities linked by social, economic, religious, or blood ties. Okay, with a common culture and dialect, typically having a recognized leader. Okay, so this is important, because what we're going to cover today is not only pertaining to the converted Jew or Israeli, okay, and that's going to be a brief assertion, but we're going to be focusing more on the actual bloodline, the actual blood that would identify the people who are associated with these 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, so let's get on and answer the first question for today's study. Okay, folks, the first question that was posed today for this episode of the study was, where did the 12 tribes of Israel come from? Okay, where did the 12 tribes come from? Alright, now first of all, we have to get the foundation. When we're talking about the blood descendants of Israel, then we are made to realize that the 12 tribes are the sons of Jacob, okay? So they come from the loins of Jacob himself, alright? So Jacob had a number of sons. Those sons were given a blessing and inheritance by their dad while he was on his deathbed in Egypt. Okay, and when they all received the blessings from their dad, they became at that point the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, so we know that Jacob's name was changed to Israel. Okay, and therefore his children or blood descendants still living on earth today are called the Israelites. They have not gone anywhere except out of their original homeland, okay, and been scattered abroad, and we're going to get into that, okay? Now, the 12 sons of Israel were made into tribes, like I just stated, on the day that their dad, Israel, was on his deathbed. And we get the context of that in Genesis chapter 47, verses 27 and 28, and we'll touch on that. And recognize that it was time to bless each of his sons, which we get in Genesis chapter 49. All the sons of Israel at this time were given a prophetic blessing by their pa, with each son receiving a statement concerning what would befall his tribe during the last days, okay, as well as an allotment of land. Okay, so let's get into Genesis chapter 47 and then Genesis chapter 49, as well as Revelation chapter 7 verses 2 through 8. Now, when we touch on Revelation chapter 7 verses 2 through 8, we're going to be analyzing the prophecy covering the people who will lead all of y'all who is elect, all of the children of the calling, whether they be Gentile or Israel, during these last days. Okay, but first, when the kingdom will begin to be established, which is happening right now, it's going to take the Israelites to wake up. When all of the Israelites wake up, the world will then wake up, and that is when we're going to see a increase in the time that we're in coming to the time that we are currently in coming to a close. Okay, so let's go on to Genesis chapter 47 verses 27 through 28, and we're going to get the context of Jacob or Israel or Yasha'Allah being on his deathbed. Okay, so we see in verse 27, and Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions therein, and grew and multiplied exceedingly. Genesis 47 verse 28. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the whole age of Jacob was 147 years old. And the time drew nigh that Israel must die. And he called his son Joseph, and said unto him, If now I have found grace in thy sight, put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh, and deal kindly and truly with me. Bury me not, I pray thee, in Egypt, but I will lie with my fathers, and thou shalt carry me out of Egypt, and bury me in their burying place. And he said, I will do as thou hast said. And he said, Swear unto me. And he, meaning Joseph, swore unto him. And Israel bowed himself upon the bed's head. Okay, so this is the context that I needed to bring forth to highlight that Israel, while he was on his deathbed, was still in Egypt when he gave the inheritance to his children, as well as inheritance to Ephraim and Manasseh, Joseph's two sons. Okay, now to get the context of the inheritance that Ephraim and Manasseh received, you should read Genesis chapter 48. Okay, but we're going to skip over 48 and go straight into 49, which highlights certain characteristics that each tribe would be identified by in these end times. Okay, each one of these characteristics befell the children of Israel during the time that we're currently facing in. Okay, so let's start at verse 1 of Genesis 49. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Okay, I'll read that again. This is verse 1 of Genesis 49. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together, and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father. So right now, we are seeing that one way we will be able to identify the children of Israel in these last days is due to these characteristics of prophecy that was given by Israel himself according to his sons, who would become the heads of the 12 tribes of Israel. So we're first going to see that 1, the 12 tribes of Israel today are the Israelites. 2, they are a living people by physical blood. Okay. 3, not only are they living, but they are still alive to this day. And because they had received prophetic blessings pertaining to the last days we are currently living in right now, that would be proof that the Israelites are still on earth to this day. Okay, so we're going to get into these prophetic blessings. Okay, but first, let us go into Revelation chapter 7 to just drill home the fact that the Israelites are on earth today. Okay, now verse 7 of chapter 7, Revelation. And after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. Now this is pertaining to the angels getting command by Yahuwah to not allow Satan to be loosed on the earth at this time. Those winds have been loosed though, okay, at this present time. They are loose now. Satan is reigning on this earth right now. Okay. And I saw another angel, verse 2. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living Elohim. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our Elohim in their foreheads. So the servants of Elohim, or the leaders of the 12 tribes of Israel, would receive a seal in their forehead, so that they would then go forth as children of the calling, as servants of the calling, to be the leaders that were prophesied to come in the last days to guide or help guide the rest of the people of the world into the truth, that were to be led into the truth. Verse 3 again, saying, Hurt not the earth, neither the sea nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our Elohim in their foreheads. And I heard the number of them which were sealed. And there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. So we get the context in verse 4 that there are a very important people that will be sealed with the seal of the servants of the Most High. Okay, as we read in verse 3, and that seal will be in their foreheads. Now these will be 144,000 men, 12,000 men from each tribe of Israel, who will be the servants of the Most High, or leaders in this last day. Okay, now this is why it's so important. This verse right here is why it is so important to identify who the children of Israel are. Okay, because they are still alive to this day. Now we're going to go down to verse 5. Of the tribe of Judah. Okay, Judah is the tribe that Hamashiach himself came from. It is the kingly tribe, okay? Judah is the so-called African American or Negro today. The so-called Negro in Brazil and some parts of Suriname, as well as in America and some parts of Europe, as well as parts of West and Central Africa today. Okay, so Judah is still alive today, and they are the so-called Negro today. All right, and that is the tribe that Christ or Hamashiach came through. Okay, of the tribe of Judah were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Reuben were sealed 12,000. Reuben being those Florida Seminole Indians, okay, as well as majority Aborigine people that are located in Australia today. The Aborigines as well as the Seminole Indian. All right, that's Reuben. All right, Reuben was sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Gad were sealed 12,000. Gad is the so-called American Indian today. Okay, the American Indian is truly the tribe of Gad. Okay, and we're going to get more context on each one of these tribes as we go back to Genesis 49. Okay, now verse 6. Of the tribe of Asher were sealed 12,000. Okay, Asher is the tribes located around the Suriname area, Uruguay, okay, around Venezuela, around that area. Okay, now we're going to get further context. Let me go back to chapter 7. Of the tribe of Naphtali were sealed 12,000. Naphtali is the South Pacific tribes, okay? The tribes like the Hawaiians and the Samoans, Tongans, the Fijians, all in those South Pacific islands. Even some of the Negritos that are located in the Philippines, that made their way up to the Philippines. That is the tribe of Naphtali, okay? Okay, now we're still in verse 6. Of the tribe of Naphtali were sealed 12,000. Once again, those are the South Pacific peoples, the peoples in the South Pacific seas right now. Okay, the Tongans, Samoans, Fijians, the Hawaiians, even some of those people have gone upward toward areas of Guam and the Philippines, the Negritos. Okay, then you have were sealed of the tribe of Manasseh were sealed 12,000. Okay, Manasseh today is Manasseh is the Cubans today. Okay, the Cubanos today. Okay, then you have of the verse 7 of the tribe of Simeon were sealed 12,000. Okay, Simeon today would be considered the Dominicans. Okay, all those people in the Dominican area today. All right, then you have, let's go down to, we're still in verse 7. Of the tribe of Levi were sealed 12,000. Okay, the Levites, or the tribe of Levi today, are in current or present day Haitian today, or Haiti today. They are the current Haitians of today. Okay, then you have of the tribe of Issachar were sealed 12,000. The Issacharites today are the so-called Mexicans. All right, so they are not Mexicans, they are Issacharites. Okay, and Issachar is the so-called Mexican today. Then you have of the tribe of Zebulun were sealed 12,000. All of the people, all of the Zebulunites, they are the people of Panama, El Salvador, Honduras. You have parts of where else can I associate Zebulun with? Guatemala. Okay, these areas are the Zebulunites today. All right. Then of the tribe of Joseph were sealed 12,000. Now Joseph in this context is Ephraim. All right, the tribe of Joseph, Ephraim, it would be considered Puerto Rico today. All right, all of the Boricua Taino Indians today. All right, so all of those descendants of those people would be considered Ephraim today, who are located in Puerto Rico. Okay. Then of the tribe of Benjamin were sealed 12,000. Benjamin would be all of the West Trinidadians, or the West Indians. Okay, so you have the islands of the Caribbean, Trinidad, Jamaica. Okay, all of those areas over there would be considered the Benjamites of today. All right, and now look in verse 9, we see, after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds, the people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands, and cried with a loud voice, saying, Salvation to our Elohim, which sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb. So if you make the distinction, you will see that the 12 tribes of Israel were separated or named first, because they will be the leaders of the great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds. You see, so even though we see there's proof that all nations and kindreds will also be translated or transposed into the new kingdom to come, it is the tribes of Israel, the men of the tribes of Israel, which will be the leaders. Okay? And that's very important, because that is why this study is being brought forth, to continue to highlight the fact that the children of Israel are still alive today, that the children of Israel are the Israelites of old that are still alive today, that each of the 12 tribes and the men and women and children of these tribes are still alive today, and that there's a very prophetic inheritance and blessing associated with the people of these 12 tribes today, as we just read. Okay, so what we're going to do now is get into the next question. All right, and we're going to then highlight the characteristics of each tribe as brought forth in Genesis 49, as well as in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 33. Alright, that's a good question, viewers at home. The next question that was brought up was, who are the members of the 12 tribes? Okay, well, we've already discussed their names, alright, and what their titles were, but once again, the original sons of Israel, who make up the 12 tribes of Israel, are Reuben, Levi, Simeon, Judah, Issachar, Gad, Asher, Zebulun, Ephraim, Manasseh, Naphtali, Benjamin, all right, and as well as Dan. Okay, now Ephraim and Manasseh are considered the two half tribes. Okay, and they were given an inheritance and eventually replaced Dan's placement within the 12 tribes once Dan was removed for heresy. Now, I'll briefly touch on Dan, just very briefly, but there are some awesome videos that have been brought forth by the brothers in GOCC, Elder Ricard, who have brought forth the truth about Dan in a very enlightening way. I'm not in any affiliation with the brothers, but they did bring forth a very good assertion of where Dan is today. So I suggest that you go on YouTube and you watch those videos if you need more edification. My point in this is just to quickly identify the reason why Dan is not included in Revelation chapter 7 as being the leaders of the people in these last days. Okay, so what we're going to do real quick, just speaking on Dan, is Dan, the reason he was removed, or rather the children of Dan were removed from his initial inheritance, is due to idol worship, okay, and joining league with Satan, okay, and in doing so trying to get the other tribes of Israel to join him, okay, and setting himself up as a power as opposed to falling under the initial inheritance that he received, okay. Now, he was never given all of his inheritance due to his son's actions of trying to get his descendants, or the family, his other family of the 12 tribes, to serve other gods, which they kind of had help with from the tribe of Ephraim in the form of Micah, as well as from the Levites, okay, who all were influential in providing Dan with the false gods and graven images that his sons eventually used to help get them in league with Satan. All right. Now, very briefly, we could go over to, let's see. Let's go to Genesis 49, verse 17. Okay, Genesis 49 verse 17, and we're going to first get context on Dan since we're talking about him. All right, and we see in verse 16 of Genesis chapter 49 that Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Okay, so at this time he was one of the tribes of Israel, but he wasn't to actually judge his people, even though he set himself up to be a judge. Okay, now Dan shall be a serpent, verse 17. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path. An adder is a very venomous snake. Okay, an adder is one of the viperous snakes of the viper family, so they are very fast, quick, and venomous snakes, okay, with high potency venom. Now, the prophecy concerning Dan states that they will be an adder in the path that biteth the horse heels, so that his rider shall fall backward. Well, in this context, we will soon begin to realize, and you could get further context in the videos that I referenced, that the rider on the horse was in fact Dan's brothers, the other children of Israel. And it caused, when Dan became that biter or that adder of the horse heels, it caused the horse to rear up and throw the rider off. Well, when the original princes or the original rulers were thrown off, who were the Israelites, then the Gentile was allowed to hop on the horse and become the ruler. Okay, therefore making the children of Israel, the men, servants. Okay, so when you think about a horse and its rider, the rider is usually the one in command, while the people walking are the one in servitude. Well, when Dan double-crossed his brethren, he bit the brothers' horse, causing them to fall off of the horse. Okay, and when Israel fell off of the horse, the people who jumped on were the Gentile nations, as we see today. Okay, now Dan had a very specific job upon receiving his inheritance, as we read in Exodus chapter 38, where Dan's job was to basically help construct the temple, not on a masonry level, but within the actual cosmetics of the temple, meaning the veils and the curtains that you would see, of the different color sheets that were hung up to actually dress the temple that was constructed and on a masonry level and on a carpentry level by the tribe of Judah. Okay, now you get that context in Exodus chapter 38 verses 21 through 34. Okay, and now we could just go to that real quick. Exodus 38 verses 21 through 34, or 21 through 24, where we read verse 21, "This is the sum of the tabernacle, even of the tabernacle of testimony, as it was counted according to the commandment of Moshe, for the service of the Levites, by the hand of Ithamar, son to Aaron, and the priest." So The tabernacle was to be used by the Levites as the priests and high priests of Israel. And this is where the Ark of the Covenant was to be laid. The tabernacle was basically the earthly representation of the heavenly tabernacle at this time. Okay, and it was a holy place. And the Levites were the ones who were to oversee this tabernacle. But they received help of constructing it from members of the other tribes, their brethren. Verse 22. And Bezaleel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, made all that Yahuwah commanded Moshe. And with him was Oholiab, son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, an engraver, and a cunning workman, and an embroiderer in blue, and in purple, and in scarlet, and fine linen. So the children of Dan were engravers as well as embroiderers. They were the ones who did a lot of the artwork that was on the walls of the tabernacle, and on the outside. When you saw the pillars with the different inscriptions, it was the children of Dan who engraved these things. Okay? Now, we also see that he was an embroiderer. He was an embroiderer of blue and purple and in scarlet and fine linens. So he was the one who constructed or who threaded together the different sheets and veils that were within the temple to separate different sections of the temple. Okay? Then finally in verse 24, and the gold, or all the gold that was occupied for the work, and all the work of the holy place, even the gold of the offering, was 29 talents, and 730 shekels, after the shekel of the sanctuary. So it was all this gold that was inlaid into the temple that was used for the different cups, different offering plates and such that would be cosmetically placed within the temple. Okay, so this was Dan's original job, but he fell from this job when he began to want to search for power within himself. Okay, and now let's go into you know what, let's just get the final context on who Dan was and that he truly did do idol worship. We'll go to Judges, and this is going to be it on Dan. Like I said, this focus isn't about Dan today. We're just going to get some quick context on him, and then we're going to move on to the other tribes. But we read in Judges chapter, let's see, Judges 18. We'll go to Judges 18, Judges chapter 18, verse 29 on down. And you can read the entire chapters 17 and 18 to get full context on what Dan actually did. But basically, they stole the Ephraimite Micah's graven images and took the priest that he had set up to himself, who was a young Levite man, and so they basically commandeered all of Micah's belongings, okay? And they set a city up as their own to worship these graven images and idols to begin to get in league with Satan, where we read verse 29 of chapter 18. And they called the name of the city Dan, after the name of Dan their father, who was born unto Israel. Howbeit, the name of the city was Laish at the first. So the Danites had just conquered the city of Laish and converted the name Laish into the city of Dan. Okay, now that wasn't their original inheritance. Now, and the children of Dan, verse 30, and the children of Dan set up the graven image, and Jonathan, the son of Gershom, the son of Manasseh, he and his sons were priests to the tribe of Dan unto the day of the captivity of the land. So we see right here that there were some priests set up to them, but they were not priests of the Levites, who were the true priests of Israel. The priests set up to Dan were of the sons of Manasseh. So we see right now that Dan is doing some perverted things within his own city because he's in a rebellious mind frame. And it's that rebellious mind frame that caused him to be removed from the inheritance of the prophetic blessing concerning the 12 tribes of Israel in these last days. Okay, and finally verse 31, and they set them up Micah's graven image, Micah was the man on Mount Ephraim who lived on Mount Ephraim. He's an Ephraimite, okay? And they stole Micah's graven image. Now, Micah was into some things that he wasn't even supposed to be into, okay? But they stole his graven image, okay, and set them up, which he had made, all the time that the house of Elohim was in Shiloh. So the house of Elohim was still in Shiloh, okay, the true worship place. Instead, they set up their own places of worship, and it was not to Elohim, okay? It was not to Yahuwah, the Most High. It was to Satan, all right? So, let's now get into, you know what? Just one more quick thing concerning Dan. Let's go to Amos, the book of Amos, and just nip this thing in the bud right now. Where we read in the book of Amos chapter 8, verse, let's go Amos chapter 8, verse 11 down. Behold, the days come, saith Yahuwah Elohim, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread in the land, or not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of Yahuwah. And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of Yahuwah, and shall not find it. In that day shall the fair virgins and young men faint for thirst. They that swear by the sin of Samaria, and say, Thy God, O Dan, liveth, and the manner of Beersheba liveth, even they shall fall and never rise up again. So this is talking about the Danites, who we know, and once again you can get full context of this in the videos I referenced to, but the Danites were a sea-traveling people, okay? And when the inheritance began to be removed from them, and they begin to search for that inheritance, they will not find it, okay? Even though some of the Danites that are still alive today will be transposed into the kingdom to come, they just won't be the leaders with the 12 tribes, with the 144,000 men that were consecrated and set aside to become leaders, okay? So, let's go down. Let's see. Let's go and answer the next question, okay? Let's go and answer the next question and keep the study moving forward. Okay, folks, the next question that was posed to me was, are the 12 tribes of Israel still living on earth today? Well, before we get into biblical truths about this, I'd like to reference this archaeological book and historical book titled Journey for Tobiyah, all right, or Journey for Tobiyah, all right? Now, you know the famous saying, if you want to hide something from a Negro, as they say, put it in a book. All right, well, in this particular case, I'm under the impression that the author had to create an image of a so-called white man on the front, because if she hadn't, she would not have been able to get this book published with all the truths that it brings concerning the historical and archaeological data that has been culminated about the children of Israel. Now, if you look up, it says Journey for Tobiyah, who we know was a Levite, okay? He was a Levite of the tribe of Levi. And we also know that he lived during the time of the Babylonian capture, or the Assyrian Babylonian capture, okay? Now, this is titled The Dramatic Adventures of a Slave Boy from Ancient Israel, okay? Now, this is not a slave boy right here, okay? So don't allow this image to throw you off. What I'm going to do is go to the back of the book, to the author's note, and I'm going to give you an idea of when this book takes place. Alright? Now, the historical events of this story take place in about the year 700 BCE. Now, we know that around 721 to 718 BCE, okay, our people from the 10 northern tribes took counsel among themselves to head into the Euphrates River, okay? They journeyed on boat through the Euphrates River, down around the Horn of Africa, up the bottom of Africa, around the bottom of Africa, into the Americas. Okay, and we get reference of that in 2nd Ezra chapter 13. Okay, we'll go into that in a moment. But let me read this. The historical events of that story take place in about the year 700 BCE, during King Sennacherib's 4th campaign. Its aim was to subdue the people of Babylonia, who refused to accept Assyrian overlordship, according to the official counts found in the ruins of Nineveh. The leading personality in the revolt was the prince and for some time king, Merodach Baladan. Merodach Baladan, as Ancho mentioned, is also mentioned several times in the Bible. I can confirm that. Sennacherib, who was also mentioned many times, Sennacherib's 4th campaign is vividly illustrated in bas-reliefs. Bas-reliefs are those clay and hard stone drawings where you see the inscriptions and engravings of the Israelite men being captured, as well as the women and children being captured and led off into captivity. Okay? And their bas-reliefs at the time were basically newspapers of the day. Okay? So Sennacherib's 4th campaign is vividly illustrated in bas-reliefs, originally made for the royal palace at Nineveh, which may be seen at the British Museum in London. So a lot of our historical and archaeological proofs, folks, and I'm talking to the children of Israel who are watching right now, the reason that it is so difficult to identify with who you are is because all of our priceless possessions have been excavated and stolen from us, okay, and hidden within the basements of these world famous museums, okay, and that is why you will not be able to see them, as well as parts of many private collections. So you have private collectors who have bought and purchased many of our ancient artifacts, therefore hiding the truth about who we are. Now, although Assyrian records do not mention a secret consignment of gold, something is known of how the Babylonian rebels escaped. We also know something of what happened to them 6 years later when Sennacherib finally built the big ships needed to pursue them. A great victory was then won, according to the Assyrians. At the command of Ashur, the great ruler, like a swift javelin, I, Sennacherib, went into their midst and accomplished the defeat of their armies. Their host I shattered. As for the king of Elam and the king of Babylon, Merodach Baladan, the dread of my terrible onslaught overcame them. They forsook their chariots. They fled from their lands and, to save their lives, like the eagle, betook themselves to the inaccessible mountains, and like unto birds that one pursues, their hearts were rent or torn. To the day of their death they did not come out, nor did they make war. Now here goes the meat of these author notes that I wanted to focus on. The small kingdom of Judah, to which Tobiyah returned, was all that remained of the original and much larger kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of David and Solomon. Now, we know that the reason that Judah, Benjamin, and Levi of the southern tribes were the ones who remained even on into the time of the Roman capture and captivity of the land in Judea is because the 10 northern tribes had taken counsel among themselves to flee into a further land, which we know as the Americas today. Okay, so the lie that is told that the so-called Indians came down across the Bering Strait from China, from Asia, someplace, that's a farce. That is a lie told in schools to keep us from identifying who the children of Israel truly are today. The reality is that the 10 northern tribes came from the northern kingdom of Israel through the Euphrates, once again, down around the Horn of Africa, around southern Africa, the southern tip of Africa, down around, all on boat, and came up into the Americas. Now the Most High stilled the waters for them at this time because no nation, no people had been across into the new world, as they call it, into the new Americas. Okay, it was only to the children of Israel from the 10 northern tribes entered into the seas that they were able to cross over. All right, now here's some more meat. The northern land of Israel had been conquered, and its capital city of Samaria destroyed by the Assyrians about 721 BCE. the same time period that the 10 northern tribes of Israel took counsel among themselves and went down into the sea and up around the Horn of Africa into the Americas today. Okay, so the timeline fits perfectly with what other brothers have brought forth pertaining to the 10 northern tribes fleeing the northern kingdom of Israel during the Assyrian capture. Okay, now the scattering of the inhabitants and their loss of identity gave rise to the tradition of the lost tribes of Israel. Judah survived more than a century longer before being invaded by the Babylonian army in 597 BCE. In many ways, the ancient people of Israel were very much like their neighbors, but as the religious ideas of Babylonia and Assyria and other great states faded and were forgotten, those of Israel developed and matured. The belief which finally emerged as one God, or Elohim, universally sovereign, an idea which was to bring inspiration and hope to the world. Okay, now that was by Barbara E. Morgan, okay, who is a trained historian and archaeologist who wrote this book in the 60s. I believe, let's see, in 1966. Yes, this book was copywritten in 1966, okay? So the woman was blessed enough to be able to go to these locations and identify our Israelite situation for herself, and even wrote about it in this book, okay? And she's a really trained author. If you can get your hand on this book, I suggest you try to find a copy of it, okay? Now, what we're going to do at this point is we're going to realize that in answering of the question of are the 12 tribes still living on earth today, yes, all of the 12 tribes of Israel are still alive on the earth to this very day. Now, due to the breaking of the original covenant established by Yahuwah and Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, or Jacob, the children of Israel would forever experience the curses put on them for disobedience, or for their disobedience outside of the land of Egypt, when they were led by the hand of Moshe and Aaron out of Egypt by the hand of the Most High, okay? Now, we can get context of that in Deuteronomy chapter 46. Let's first go to Isaiah chapter 54, okay, because it's important that we know that it was the Most High's mighty hand that guided us and led us out. Okay. Where we read, now we know that we were scattered. Okay. So we read in verse 4. Fear not, of Isaiah 54. Fear not, for thou shalt not be ashamed, neither be thou confounded, for thou shalt not be put to shame. For thou shalt forget the shame of thy youth, and shalt not remember the reproach of thy widowhood any more. That widowhood being the isolation that we received once we broke the original covenant, okay? Verse 5. For thy maker is thine husband, okay? Yahuwah of hosts is his name, and the Redeemer, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. The Elohim of the whole earth shall he be called. So it's verses like these that would even help us to identify that Yahushua HaMashiach was indeed Elohim in the flesh, okay? Was Yahuwah in the flesh, okay? You can see a cross-reference of that even in Acts chapter 4, okay? Acts chapter 4, for instance, where we see, excuse me, folks. Acts chapter 4, where we see another reference to the Holy One of Israel being mentioned. Okay, where we see verse 14 of Acts chapter, oh, excuse me, not Acts chapter 4, Acts chapter 3, excuse me, verse 14. But ye denied the Holy One and the just, and desired a murderer to be granted unto you. Now we know the Holy One is pertaining to Yahushua HaMashiach, or Yeshaya, meaning our Savior. Yahushua HaMashiach, meaning Yahuwah shall save, or Yahuwah saves. So Mashiach, meaning anointed Messiah. Okay, so Yahushua HaMashiach is considered the Holy One of Israel. He is the Holy One of Israel. And it's that same Holy One of Israel, the Elohim of the whole earth, shall he be called, which we saw and read in Isaiah chapter 54, verse 5. Now verse 6. For Yahuwah hath called thee as a woman, forsaken and grieved in spirit, and a wife of youth, when thou wast refused, saith thy Elohim. For a small moment have I forsaken thee, but with great mercies will I gather thee. See, you could only be gathered when you are scattered. Okay, and the children of Israel were scattered across all four corners of the world, and will be gathered unto Elohim again. In a little wrath I hid my face from thee for a moment, but with everlasting kindness will I have mercy on thee, saith Yahuwah thy Redeemer. Okay, so we're getting further context that not only is he the Redeemer, the one who purchased the possession, okay, the possession being all of the elect whose sin needed to be forgiven through the propitiation set forth by Yahushua Mashiach, but we also see that the children of Israel will be gathered, especially pertaining to the prophecy concerning the 12,000 men from each tribe of the 144,000 of the tribes of Israel. Okay, now let's get into Jeremiah chapter 30. Verses 4 through 9, where we read. Now, the reason we're going to Jeremiah chapter 30 verses 4 through 9 before we get into Deuteronomy chapter 28 is because I want to just highlight the fact that the children of Israel are still on earth to this day and will be going through some prophetic things that concern them. Okay? Another of which, are located in chapter 30 of Jeremiah verse 4, where we read. And these are the words that Yahuwah spake concerning Israel and concerning Judah. Okay? For thus saith Yahuwah, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. Think about all of the situations going on right now with the riots pertaining to our people. All of the different situations where our children are being taken from us due to injustice. Okay? Ask ye now, and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. Okay, a lot of you Israelite men may be experiencing a serious pain in your midsection, in your loins, okay? And I'm talking about a pain that you would associate with the birth pains of a woman who is having a child, okay? Now this happened to me multiple times, where I thought that I was food poisoned, or that I had eaten something that wasn't in agreement with my system, with my bodily system, only for it to pass within a day or two and realize that there was nothing truly wrong with me. It was until that I recognized and was led to Jeremiah chapter 30 verses 4 through 7 that I was made to realize that the pain that I was feeling was directly associated with the prophecy concerning the Jacobites or the Israelites today. So I'll read that again. And men of Israel, if you have felt that pain in your stomach and you didn't know what it was, and it lasted and it caused you to lie in bed and really cry out to the Most High because it hurt you so bad, and you just knew in your heart that this had to be some of the pain that a woman felt when she goes through labor, then my brother, you are an Israelite who is going through the birth pains that were prophesied in Jeremiah chapter 30. For thus saith Yahuwah, verse 5, we have heard of a voice of trembling, of fear and not of peace. Verse 6, ask ye now and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Verse 8, for it shall come to pass in that day, saith Yahuwah of hosts, that I will break his yoke from off my neck, and will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. Okay? But they shall serve Yahuwah the Elohim, and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. Now David in this situation is not talking about King David, Jesse's son. This is referring to Hamashiach himself. okay, being raised up as king unto all of the elect, unto all of Israel, and then unto the Gentile nations who will cleave unto them. Okay? Now, what I'd like to do to further prove that the children of Israel are alive on earth today is referred to chapter 28 of Deuteronomy, verse 45, where we read, let's go to 45 to 46. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of Yahuwah thy Elohim, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. Now, when we read and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, we are talking about destroyed as a nation, not destroyed as a people to where they are no longer on earth any further. We are talking about the placement that we had received when we were not under the curses as the children of Israel due to our inheritance through Abraham. We would be destroyed from that to where we would no longer be the rulers of earth anymore. Okay? And we read, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of Yahuwah thy Elohim, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. When we read upon thy seed forever, we get clear context that we have not been destroyed as a people from off the face of the earth. Rather, we have been destroyed in our inhabitants of our inheritance within the land of Israel. We have been destroyed from being the kings that we were set up, and the queens married to these kings that we were. Okay? We have lost our true placement in the land as given over to us when we received our initial inheritance in the covenant. Alright? Now, we'll go down to verses, let's go down to verses 64 through 68. And if you are not familiar with Deuteronomy chapter 28, folks, I suggest that you read Deuteronomy 28, the blessings as well as the curses, which start at verse 45 on down, talking about the curses. And there is no doubt that you will be able to identify, if it is in the will of Yahuwah, that you will be able to identify who these people are today based off of these curses alone. Okay? Because the people of Israel are still currently experiencing the curses placed on them. Okay? There's no other people on earth who are experiencing these curses as the children of Israel are. Okay? Now, verse 64 of Deuteronomy 28. And Yahuwah shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. So right there, folks, we're getting the context that the children of Israel will be scattered abroad. And that prophecy most definitely came true around 721, 718 BCE, when the 10 northern tribes fled from the northern kingdom of Israel into the Americas. And it also became true after 70 AD, when the Romans began to persecute Judah, Benjamin, and Levi in Israel and Jerusalem, causing them to flee into northern, western, and central Africa, only to be gathered up by the Hamites and Arabs, the Hamites meaning the true Africans, as well as the Arabian people, and the Edomites who had fled into Europe, okay, who became the Romans and the Europeans of today. They took counsel among each other, gathered up the people of the book, i.e. the children of Israel in Africa at that time who fled from Jerusalem in 70 AD, gathered them up on the cargo slave ships and transferred them over to the areas of Brazil, Central, and the majority of America, North America today, into the areas of Florida, Virginia, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, and all along the south and east coast of America. Okay? And then, of course, we began to mingle with Gad, who was already over here. Okay, Gad meaning the children of Israel, or the so-called American Indian. Now, when the Spaniards came over from Spain, from Europe and Spain, what happened is the children of Gad were then caused to serve in slavery in Europe. So both slaveries, as well as the Issacharites, the Mexican was the so-called Mexican, was caused to serve in servitude in the areas of California, Arizona, New Mexico, and as well as in Mexico, okay, or what we call present-day Mexico. All right, so all of the children of Israel were taken and scattered abroad to be put in servitude. Now, we read in verse 65 of Deuteronomy 28, "And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. But Yahuwah shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have no assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, Would Elohim it were evening," meaning, man, Elohim, we wish it were the evening time so we could get some rest. And at even thou shalt say, "Would Elohim it were morning," because our people at the evening could hardly even sleep because they heard the patty rollers, okay, who are the police today, but who were the police back then, trying to capture the runaway slaves, okay, the paddle rollers, okay. These were the so-called white men who were in charge of capturing runaway slaves. So the slaves, that is when at nighttime they took counsel among themselves, and that is when a lot of prayer and reading of the word was done after Massa and all them went to sleep, okay, on the plantations, okay. So they're saying, "And at evening thou shalt say, Would Elohim it were morning, for the fear of thine heart, wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see." Verse 68, "And Yahuwah shall bring thee into Egypt." Egypt in this sense meaning the house of bondage. Okay, Egypt is named by the Greeks, was named the house of bondage. But the original land of Egypt is called Mitzrayim. Okay, Mitzrayim. Alright. Now, Mitzrayim is the original land of Egypt. But, "And Yahuwah shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships." This Egypt is pertaining to Egypt, the house of bondage, which we know as America, Central and South America. Alright? "By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you." Meaning nobody will come. Once again, one of the famous questions I had as a child was, "Mother, how come none of the so-called Africans, how come Shaka and all them, Shaka Zulu and all them never came and saved us? Because these were some warrior tribes. How come they never came over and got us back and took us into Africa, we African Americans?" Well, Shaka was of the Hamitic tribes, and he was one of the rulers of one of the tribes who captured and helped capture the Israelites and took them into slavery. So the Africans today that are in present-day Africa, who are not of the blood descendancy of Israel, they would not have come and picked us up. Okay, that is even why those people who are on Amistad, who were given sovereignty to go back into Africa, it was proven that they were not children of Israel. Okay, that is why they were allowed to go back in Africa. And even when he went back in Africa, those Amistad, the people on the Amistad ship, or the movie Amistad, when they were allowed to go back to Africa, them same men became slave owners themselves and continued within the slave trade. Okay, so it was proven in court that they were not of the blood of the Israelites. And that's a part of the movie that you will not see, that they will not bring forth. But that is why they were given clemency, while the rest of the Israelite slaves were still made to be enslaved. Okay? Those particular Africans were able to prove that they were not of Israelite tribes. Okay? Therefore they were Hamitic and part of the slave trade as on the end of gathering the Israelites into slavery. Okay? And that's a part of history that you're going to have to check for yourself. Okay? Now, what we just did was cover the third question. Let's go on and get into question number 4. Okay, folks, the next question delivered to me was, can anybody be a part of the 12 tribes? Quick answer to that, no. Okay, the sons of Israel are a living people. All right, the 12 tribes of Israel are alive in 2015 right now. okay, alive, all right, and breathing. Not necessarily thriving in the land, as you see through the different media outlets, but we are alive and breathing, okay? Just like I cannot become an Arabian or a Chinese man, okay, by converting over to their customs and beliefs and converting into a life that would be identified as living as a Chinese man or Arabian. The same can a person not become a member of the tribe of Israel, okay? And I can't claim that I am of these people just by claiming that I am them, okay? I have to be Chinese by blood. I have to be an Arabian by blood, okay? And in the same way, no one can become an Israelite by claiming that they are an Israelite, okay? Without them being actual blood descendants of Israel or his sons, okay? Now, we read in the book of Revelation, chapter 2, verse 9, where Yahuwah states, I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. He's talking to the Israelites, okay? And I know the blasphemy of them, which say they are Jews, but are not, but are the synagogue of Satan, okay? Those people in Israel right now are not the true Jews by blood, okay? They are Jewish people by conversion into the religion of Judaism, but they are not Jews by blood, okay? And what I would like to do is reference, first let's go into Romans. Let's first go into Romans chapter 10, verses 1 through 3. And we're going to get context about Paul and his desire that the Israelites wake up so that they might yearn for the salvation set forth in Yahushua HaMashiach. Okay? Now we read in the book of Romans chapter 10, verse 1 through 3. Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to Elohim for Israel is that they might be saved. Okay? Verse 2. For I bear them record that they have a zeal of Elohim, but not according to knowledge. Okay? Now in this context we are talking about the law as was delivered to Moshe, and the law as being the deciding factor of whether or not you enter into the kingdom of heaven. What Paul is basically saying is the Israelites have a zeal, but not according to knowledge. Because at this particular time in life, in living, it is not the law that is going to translate us into the kingdom of heaven. Although we must enact and adhere to the law, it is not the righteousness or self-righteousness that we garner from the law that's going to get us into the kingdom. It is Yahushua HaMashiach's taking on of the law, which is sin, okay, which was converted into sin, that would be the propitiation of payment for all those who he came to save, okay? Now, when we say all those who he came to save, we are talking about first the Israelites, okay, because the Israelites are the people who the law was given to. The Gentile nations fall under grace, okay? They fall under the idea and the truth that you have to have the faith in Hamashiach's propitiation or payment of the sin of the Israelite, so that they would be grafted into that covenant, okay, in these final times. All right. And then verse 3, for they being ignorant of Elohim's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness, meaning taking on the law and being self-righteous within themselves, okay, not understanding that the law will not pass away, and also not realizing that if they break one tittle, if we break one point of the law, we are guilty of all. So there's no way that we will be these perfect beings who are not in need of the salvation of Yahushua HaMashiach. Okay? Now, for they being ignorant of Elohim's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of Elohim. Now, why I brought these verses up is Paul is basically crying out to the Israelites who were still alive at that time, as well as being alive today, who he identified with as being a true Israelite by blood of the tribe of Benjamin, okay, and it was his duty to go to the Israelites first, and then unto the Gentile nations and be a light unto them. Okay, but what I would like to do is consult into the American People's Encyclopedia and just get you a quick synopsis on the people who are in Israel today. Okay, so let's go on into that real quick, and then we'll answer the next question. Okay, folks, so I got my American People's Encyclopedia. Now, this encyclopedia is very old. Okay, it first entered into the Inter-American Copyright Union in the year 1910. Okay, then it was copywritten internationally through the International Copyright Union in the year of 1948. And wouldn't you know, the year 1948 was the year that the people who I'm about to read about first took stake in the land of Israel as we know it today. Okay, so that's very peculiar to me. So we see that the original copyright in America, because this is the Americans People Encyclopedia, okay? American People Encyclopedia, all right? Was first copywritten in the year 1910. So there's a lot of pertinent information in this book. And you will not find these books in your school systems today, and you may not even find them in your higher institutions of learning, because many more of our people are being able to go into these institutions of learning and find and get access to books like this. Okay, so I'm going to read from the K section of this book, and I was led to the Khazar people. Okay, now the Khazarians, for all of you who don't know, are descendants, or at one time were called the people of Ashkenaz, or the Ashkenazis. Those same Ashkenazi people are children of Japheth. Okay, so they are Gentile people who fled into the northern regions of Greece, Europe, okay, Germany, East, South, and Central Europe, and they are known as the Ashkenazi people. That is where the word Nazi comes from, okay? So they are the Ashkenazi people, also considered German people, okay? Now there's something very peculiar about these people, all right? Now, I'm going to just read straight out of this book. The Khazar, the name of a people and an empire powerful from about AD 600 to 1000 in the area of the Caspian Sea. Prior to that time, they had important relations with Persia, often acting as an ally. When the hordes of Attila, yes, that same Attila the Hun, and later the Turks, overran their country, they became for a time a subject people. For this reason, they sometimes were called White Huns or Turks from the east. So right now we see that these are white people, okay, so-called white people of the descendants of Japheth, okay, Japheth being the third son of Noah, whose land was in the northern regions and in the regions of Europe and Russia and even Germany today, okay. Now, in the 7th century, they reassumed a place of power and influence which made them the chief bulwark against the inroads of the Mohammedan Empire. Okay, talking about the current day Arabians, alright? Now, following the decline of the latter, the cities of the Khazars controlled the trade routes between east and west. So upon the decline of the Mohammedan empires, the Khazarians begin to take control of the trade routes. Now, anyone in control of the trade routes is in control of the economy, okay? The same way that these same people, the Khazarians, who call themselves Jewish today, are in control of the world's economy under Satan. Now, let's get more. This is straight out this book. Now, following the decline of the latter, the cities of the Khazars controlled the trade routes between east and west. Traders from all nearby lands, including many Jews, in this case, this context of this book is talking about the true Jew, okay, of the tribe of Judah, all right, were found in these markets. Now all of a sudden we get a switch. The Jewish people became very influential, and in AD 740, now look at that time. The year 740 is, let's see, over 600 years after we fled out of the land of Jerusalem, out of Israel, under Roman persecution. Okay? Very important to get this time frame. So, the Khazarian people, who this book calls Jewish, okay, the Khazarian people became very influential, and in AD 740 succeeded in converting the court to Judaism. A century later, the incoming Slavic-speaking tribesmen broke the power of the Khazars and scattered their people over Central Europe, where they were known as Jews. Okay, now the book is going to attempt to use the word scattered, because what's going to happen is this was one of their early false identifying marks, that they had been scattered as Jews. Okay, but they will not fulfill the full prophecy of being scattered in reality, because all of the children of Israel were scattered across all four corners of the world, not scattered just into Europe. Okay, and we see that in this book, where they are known as Jews, the word Jews pertaining to these people is in quotation marks, because the authors of this book and publisher of this book knew that these people were not the true Jews according to blood. Okay? Now, it is important to note that a large portion of the Central European Jews are descended from the converted Khazars. I will say that again. It is important to note that a large portion of the Central European Jews are descended from the converted Khazars. All right? And that's what I'm going to leave off with right now out of the American People's Encyclopedia. Okay? But it is important to get the context of who the present people in the land of Israel are, so that you can see who they are not. And it's important to get the context of who the present Israelites are, so that you can see who they are, okay, in accordance to who those people in Israel are not. All right, so let's go on and answer the next question, please. Okay, folks, the next question that was presented to us today was, how do you know if you are part of the 12 tribes of Israel? Well, first, let me just make a quick statement that if you cannot identify throughout your family history, if you are even descendants, if you are in America, for instance, and you have not been able to identify that you are a descendant of the slaves of America, okay, well then I don't want you to feel worried about not being part of the tribes of Israel, because the truth of the matter is we need to be focused on repenting and salvation. Okay, that's the ultimate truth. What we're doing here is helping those people who are wanting to learn their true history uncover the truth, okay, pertaining to who they really are as the children of Israel. Because once again, the children of Israel have a very important role to play within the land during these last days. Okay, it is the children of Israel, it is the men of these tribes who will be servants of the Most High as leaders and lights unto the Gentile nations in delivering the truth that has been set forth through many of the different men pertaining to the different camps that have been established throughout the land, who have been blessed and anointed to bring forth the truth unto you viewers at home. Okay? Now, to answer the question of how do you know if you are a part of the 12 tribes, when we look at the different characteristics of each tribe as laid forth in Genesis 49 and Deuteronomy 33, we begin to see those same traits exhibited by the Israelites of today, who fit every one of those characteristics that are set forth within the Holy Word, okay? Now, when you add in the curses that were referenced in Deuteronomy 28, verses 44 through 66, you begin to see even further proof that the Israelites are alive and still fighting to open the eyes of our brothers and sisters all over the world today, okay? Now, Once the whole world wake up to the truth of who the Israelites are today, the Gentiles of the world will begin to receive the truth the way that it was meant to be given by the people who the Bible was actually written for. Okay, that is why understanding has not been prevalent throughout the land in times of the past, because the Gentile was taking control of the Bible. And because the Gentile had the over-rulership of the slave in America, that caused the slave or the Israelite of the tribe of Judah to want to leave the Bible alone, because the overseers or masters used the book as a form of persecution and oppression, okay? Furthering the disbelief within the Israelite man and woman and child that this holy word was not our book, when in essence it truly was. And because they used the book in such an oppressive way, when we begin to get into their public institutions of learning and we begin to go through the different history courses that they delivered to us, we have the question and the desire to want to learn what our true history was, because we knew that our history was not being foretold in the history books outside of us being in slavery. Every year from around the 4th grade on until the years of graduation, all you hear in history is about slavery. You don't hear where our people are from, and you really don't even hear about the important aspects of our heritage as we were removed out of slavery. Not the heavy stuff. You hear the traditional Martin Luther King speech. You hear the traditional stories about Rosa Parks. But these are during the Civil Rights Movement, and these things are only delivered to us in so-called Black History Month, okay? When true, quote-unquote, so-called Black history lies within the pages from Genesis chapter 1 all the way to the final book of Revelation, chapter 22, okay? Now, once again, once the world wakes up, or the Israelites wake up to who they are, then the world will begin to be edified, which they are currently being edified right now to the truth as it was truly given in this word. Now, the false doctrine that is being presented to people will begin to be tossed out of the window. Just get it out of here, all right? And the nations of the world will begin to receive the truth as it was meant to be given. Now, we know that Hamashiach himself is an Israelite, okay? And therefore all of the false images illustrated of him as being a white man with blue eyes and blonde hair cannot be true, all right? And seeing that he is the visible image of the invisible Elohim, we also see that the Elohim, Yahuwah, or Ahaya Shahaya, as he states his name, is also a so-called black man, all right? So this is very important to grasp and understand, okay? Now we get an account, of course, of Hamashiach's appearance in Revelation chapter 1, verses 13 through 15. Where we read, verse 13 of Revelation chapter 1. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. So we see right now that his hair was like wool, okay? It wasn't like the long stringy blonde hair that they portrayed him as during the Renaissance period unto present day. We also see that his eye color was as the flame of fire, not baby blue, as his eyes were perceived today. We also see that his complexion was as fine brass, okay? And his feet were as fine brass as burnt in a furnace. Why? Because in the area that he is from, the sun would have continued to beat down upon his skin, causing his fine brass complexion to be darkened in certain areas of his body. Okay? So we see that he is not that ghostly white or rosy white that we see as him portrayed in the many false images of him today. Okay? Now those images were contracted out to artists like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, okay, during the Renaissance period, to whitewash in an attempt, and it's almost successful attempt, might I add, to hide the true image of what Hamashiach would have possibly looked like. Okay, now let's go into Deuteronomy chapter 33, and let's just get some quick characteristics of the children of Israel. All right, where we read verse 4 of Deuteronomy chapter 33. And Moshe commanded us a law, even the inheritance of the congregation of Jacob. And he was king in Jeshurun, when the heads of the people and the tribes of Israel were gathered together. Okay, now we're going to go into verse 6. Let Reuben live and not die, and let not his men be few. And this is the blessing of Judah. And he said, Hear, Yahuwah, the voice of Judah, and bring him unto his people. Let his hands be sufficient for him, and be thou an help to him from his enemies. So when we go at verse 6, when we read verse 6, we see Reuben will not die. Okay, Reuben will live, and the multitudes of Reuben will be great. Okay, there will be many men and women and children within the tribe of Reuben to this day, as we see of all of the Aborigines and even those of the Seminole Indian descent within the land of the world today. All right, then we see Judah will be and this is the blessing of Judah, verse 7. And he said, Hear, Yahuwah, the voice of Judah, and bring him unto his people. Let his hands be sufficient for him, and be thou an help to him from his enemies. All right, Judah, the so-called Negro, American Negro today, as well as in parts of Brazil and Central America, and even in Africa, parts of Africa today. Okay, Judah, okay, will be the leader amongst the people. When Judah rises up, folks, when Judah begins to take leadership for all of the actions of not only themselves but of the other tribes of Israel, the rest of the tribes will begin to follow suit. Okay, and that is happening in the land as we speak. Okay, the tribes are waking up. Okay, in verse 8, and of Levi he said, Let thy Thummim and thy Urim be with thy Holy One, whom thou didst prove at Massah, and with whom thou didst strive at the waters of Meribah, who said unto his father and to his mother, I have not seen him, neither did he acknowledge his brethren, nor knew his own children, for they have observed thy word and kept thy covenant. See, it was the Levites who were the priests and high priests of Israel at this time. Okay, so they were consecrated away from the other tribes of Israel. And actually, when you get the context of this in the book of Numbers, starting at chapter 2, you will begin to see the troops of all of the tribes of Israel set up in camps around the tabernacle that was where Levi was encamped. Okay, so Levi kept the law, okay, up until a certain point before they began to go off and do other things pertaining to idolatry and graven images and stuff like that, as we talked about earlier, in concordance with Dan. Okay, then verse 9, let's go to verse 10, excuse me. They shall teach Jacob thy judgments and Israel thy law. You see, that's Levi's job, to teach the judgments and law to Jacob or actually to the Israelites. Okay, they shall put incense before thee and whole burnt sacrifice upon thine altar. Bless Yahuwah his substance, and accept the work of his hands. Smite through the loins of them that rise against him, and of them that hate him, that they rise not again. See, even though the Levites kind of went off for a moment, they are still going to receive favor of the Most High as the original bringers of the law. All right. Verse 12. And of Benjamin he said, The beloved of the Lord, or the beloved of Yahuwah, shall dwell in safety by him, and Yahuwah shall cover him all the day long, and he shall dwell between his shoulders. You see, we see the present day Jamaicans that want to serve the Most High is truly there, and we see it the most prevalent within the music that they cultivate, within the music that they bring forth. You listen to people like Peter Taj, artists like Junior Marvin, people like that, like even Buju Banton. These people understand that they are of the children of Israel, and their duty is to bring forth the testimonies of the Bible through song. Okay, and they have very powerful music. All right. And we see verse 13. And of Joseph, he said, Joseph in this case being, Ephraim. Okay, so we're gonna get the context of Joseph. And of Joseph, he said, blessed of Yahuwah be his land, for the precious things of heaven, for the dew and for the deep that couches beneath, and for the precious fruits brought forth by the sun, and for the precious things put forth by the moon, and for the chief things of the ancient mountains, and for the precious things of the lasting hills, and for the precious things of the earth and fullness thereof, and for the goodwill of him that dwelt in the bush. Let the blessing come upon the head of Joseph, and upon the top of the head of him that was separated from his brethren. Now the head of Joseph is pertaining to the tribe of Ephraim, present-day Puerto Ricans, Taino Indians, Boricuas. Okay? And upon the top of the head of him that was separated from his brethren. His glory is like the firstling of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth. And they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh. Okay? Verse 18. And of Zebulun, he said, rejoice, Zebulun, in thy going out. Okay? And Issachar, in thy tents. Alright? We know that the so-called Mexican, at one time, they were tent dwellers or booth dwellers, as well as the tribes of Gad. Okay? And we also know that Zebulun are the oil-rich companies today. Alright? So, they will be blessed in thy going out. Okay? As they do their exports. Okay? Of all of the oil that they produce. Alright? Verse 19. They shall call the people unto the mountain. There they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness. For they shall suck of the abundance of the seas, and of treasures hid in the sand. Okay? Now, let's go down to verse 20. And of Gad he said, blessed be he that enlargeth Gad. He dwelleth as a lion, and teareth the arm with the crown of the head. And he provided the first part for himself, because there, in a portion of the lawgiver, was he seated. And he came with the heads of the people. He executed the justice of Yahuwah, and his judgments with Israel. You see, Gad at one time, and even on to present day, before they were overtaken by the cavalry, and even during that whole period of, the pilgrimage of the Europeans, of the Edomites into America, these were fierce people. Even in Israel, they were fierce fighters out of Egypt. Very fierce fighters, very fierce warriors. Okay, and they will receive they're just due an inheritance in these last days. They will be brought back to fruition. Okay. Verse 22. And of Dan he said, Dan is a lion's whelp. He shall leap from Bashan. Now we know that Dan, because of their sin toward the children of Israel as well as toward the Father in heaven, they were removed from their initial inheritance due to the cleaving on up to the graven images and to the idol worship, as well as trying to steer the Levites and other children of Israel into their idol worship, as well as their false power that they brought onto themselves. Okay, they garnered their power by their own hand, by the strength of their own hand. It wasn't allotted to them by the grace of Yahuwah. Okay, and that's why they had to make payment for their transgression against Yahuwah and would not receive the leadership roles in these last days that were highlighted in Revelation chapter 7. Okay, now verse 23. And of Naphtali he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor and full with the blessing of Yahuwah, possess the west and the south. Well, we have done research pertaining Naphtali, which would signify that the west was the South Seas. Okay, that is the South Sea, the South Pacific Sea. And you can see how friendly, from the Samoans to the Tongans to the Fijians to the Hawaiians, even up when some of those people went north, even farther north, into places like Guam and places like the Philippines, as the Negritos, you begin to see that these people are very kind-hearted people. They are always there to welcome you with open arms and make you a part of their families, a part of their luau's, a part of their parties, you know, and their way of living, because they were taken from the truth when they were caused to go into the West Seas. I mean the South Pacific Seas, okay? But these are the people of Naphtali today, or Naphtali today. Now, verse 24, and of Asher he said, let Asher be blessed with children. Let him be acceptable to his brethren, and let him dip his foot in oil. Now you see, that is further proof that the Asherites are the people of Colombia, Venezuela, some of the people of Suriname, okay, of Uruguay, the oil-rich nations of the world today. They will dip their foot in oil. They will have a multitude of oil, all right? So that's another way that we have been able to identify who the Asherites of today are. Verse 25, thy shoes shall be iron and brass. Okay, it is due to the oil-rich countries that they belong to that they have received a high placement as people in the earth, and why they are a target of the evil men of today, you know, the Edomites, as well as the the Roman Empire, as well as the Khazarian people who call themselves Jewish today. The tribe of Asher is in the targets or in the sights of a lot of these people due to their wealth in oil. All right. And then we finally see in verse 26, there is none like unto the Elohim of Jeshurun, who rideth upon the heaven in thy help, and in his excellency on the sky, in his excellency on the sky. The eternal Elohim is thy refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms. And he shall thrust out the enemy from before thee, and shall say, destroy them. Israel then shall dwell in safety alone. Verse 28. The fountain of Jacob shall be upon a land of corn and wine. Also his heavens shall drop down dew. Happy art thou, O Israel. Who is like unto thee, O people saved by Yahuwah, the shield of thy help, and who is the sword of thy excellency? And thine enemies shall be found liars unto thee, and thou shalt tread upon their high places. So all of the enemies of the children of Israel who have established the lie that we are currently living in, that lie that is being uncovered by the 144,000 men who are the leaders of the tribes of Israel and who will lead the people, and Gentiles included, into the new kingdom. Those enemies' lies are being shook up right now. And that is why they're working doubly hard, extra hard, to continue in the oppressive and persecutive nature that they have instituted upon the people of the world. All right? Now let's answer this final question and wrap the study up. Will the 12 tribes ever realize who they really are in this day and age? Well, yes, they will. The Israelites, as well as the world, will come into the truth of who we truly are. The reason for this is given in the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2. I suggest that you read the Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2 in its entirety, with the context of that who you are reading of is the children of Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel by blood descendancy. When you read that chapter within the Apocrypha, Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2, you will be edified in why the children of Israel are further experiencing what they're experiencing, as well as how the people who are in league with Satan, who are ruling this world today under Satan, how they think, okay, and the mind frame that they have, which fuels their actions today. We also read in the book of Isaiah, chapter 42, verse 6 through 8, that the Israelite man will begin to wake up and be a light unto the Gentile. He will open the blind eyes. He will be a light unto those who are in the prisons and in the prison houses today, and will reestablish the truth that's set forth in Yahushua Mashiach, the true word of Elohim. Okay? Now, as the world continues to fall into oppression and turmoil, the truth pertaining to the people of the book, or the Israelites, will be awakened in those who seek truth, and will begin to be spread throughout all four corners of the globe. And when that happens, you can expect the return of Hamashiach to be very soon after. Thank you. Let's go on and wrap this up. Thank you, folks, for joining me today for this episode of the study, Who Are the 12 Tribes of Israel? As I mentioned earlier, this was just a quick synopsis of all of the information that has been set forth in this last day pertaining to who the children of Israel are. I beseech you to go out on your own and do your own research pertaining to what was just brought forth so that you can prove what was said is true, okay? According to the Bible, as well as historic and archaeological books that supplement what the Bible has to say. Okay, I'm your host, Scripture. As always, I hope you continue to be repentant. Pray for that mercy that only the Most High can give you. And remember that the truth shall set you free. You better believe it.